JPMorgan strategists have explained that even if China overtakes the US as the world's largest economy around 2030, the US dollar may remain the world's dominant currency for the rest of the 21st century. The global investment bank cited the historical experience of when the US overtook Great Britain as the world's largest economy. Global investment bank JPMorgan strategists recently discussed the potential impact on the US dollar in the event that the Chinese economy surpasses the US as the world's largest economy. According to the Centre for Economics and Business Research, CEBR, one of the UK's leading economics consultancies, China is projected to surpass the United States as the world's largest economy by 2030.
Is also that the overall the quarter really seems to have shown that economy has ended the year on a strong note.
What do you make of these pretty mixed bag of data? Retail in particular, disappointing.
Yeah, I think retail is on the weak side. One thing we noticed that in recent weeks rather, one is the services sector probably are not doing well as in previous months. One reason is the weather. Another reason is some of the resurgence of the COVID cases in northern part of China. So some of the cities already restarted partial lockdowns. So I think that's probably one reason of this somewhat below expectation retail sales. But what's encouraging is also that the overall the quarter really seems to have shown that economy has ended the year on a strong note. The manufacturing is doing well. We did have a slightly above market forecast for 4Q GDP, which is 6.5. I think that's primarily driven by the manufacturing momentum, as you said, supported by domestic manufacturing as well as very strong trade data. So as we can see that manufacturing data, the IP data was quite strong. I suspect if you break it down, some of the components such as auto and some of the high tech and equipments have been doing well. I think if you when we have the details, we can see that in the momentum.
But Lee, the question really is how much clarity do we have in terms of China's recovery in 2021? Consumption accounts for more than 50% of GDP. If retail is sluggish, that begs the question how strong China's recovery will be this year.
Well, I think that's a fair question. We do look for gradual normalization of consumption. I think what's compensating for this weakness in services, really, I suspect a lot of this is in offline services consumption. But what we observed last year, especially in Q2, Q3, is that when the offline consumption is not doing well, the online sales tend to make up for a lot of that. So I suspect some of this weakness is related to the cold weather and related to some of the lockdowns. But all of this are likely to be temporary, and we still think later on the consumption will pick up, will normalize as the vaccination also becomes more widespread, and as the weather warms up, some of the pandemic concerns will ease.
Jude, looking at the numbers, I mean, we can question the durability of the consumer recovery there in China, but we can't really take away much from, in essence, a remarkable performance by the Chinese economy post-COVID.
Yeah, indeed. I think what's remarkable this time around, and this is related to the durability of the recovery, is that if you look at the industries, which is still the major part of the economy, it's different from past recoveries where you have all this construction-led recovery. You will see a rebound of metals and mining, all these upstream sectors. This time around, the momentum really has come from consumer-related sectors, high-tech-related sectors. If you break down the sectors by margins, it's consumers, it's the mining and upstream sectors really hasn't very much. So what tells you is that the demand actually has been supported more by the organic demand drivers, not by a credit cycle of the government. So that makes us more optimistic that growth will continue to recover. And also, global manufacturing obviously is also doing quite well. I think that's a quite supportive factor, at least in the next few quarters.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's reflected perhaps by fixed asset investment, 2.9% growth, weaker than anticipated. But does it also suggest that during COVID and during the pandemic, when it was hitting China hard, that China emerged as a slightly different beast here, a more mature economy perhaps?
I think we are heading towards that way, in the sense that the policy reaction has been more measured, and I think the priority and the sequencing of the policies is also quite different. The virus, a lot of priority was put on controlling the virus, to address the health concerns first. And once that's under control, they lifted the lockdown. They provided targeted support to the economy, making sure that the weak links don't suffer too much. They give the subsidies to industries that cannot open immediately, such as restaurants, and they ease the liquidity so that the credit market was not under too much stress. But once things start to stabilize, it's very clear that the policies are tightening incrementally. Obviously, I think even the tightening is not one direction. We can see that in recent months, there is a little bit pause in that momentum of tightening. But still, I think the policies are measured in terms of easing, and they are also trending back towards more long-term normalization, towards more to address longer-term issues such as debt sustainability and growth sustainability. So I think from that perspective, I would agree with the assessment that it is more mature, at least compared to what we experienced in the global financial crisis. It's more measured.
You talked about how the PBOC is likely to go on a policy normalization stance. How quickly do you expect that to happen? What do you expect to happen in the next 12 months?
I would say near term, we see that they are taking a pause. What happened is that as the rates increase, some of the weak borrowers start to have credit issues. So obviously, there are always concerns whether this the stress can spread, which in our view is limited. But I think from a policymaker's perspective, they want to make sure that things are not, are not compounding. The crisis, the stress is not compounding. So they are pausing for that reason. And also, I think the near term, we see that some increase in pandemic cases in northern China, as I mentioned. That's probably giving the policymakers another reason to pause. And also the soft consumption data we just saw today probably is another reason. So that I think in the next couple of months, I think the policy is still on the neutral sort of gear. They probably don't want to tighten too much. But later in the year, given that the overall yearly objective is to stabilize leverage ratio for the economy as a whole, I still expect the PBOC to tighten the policies gradually, to push the rates higher, both on the front end and the back end and the long end, and also for the credit growth to come down more.
What are the biggest risks ahead, aside from another resurgence of the coronavirus there in China? Would it be more and more strength for the yuan, or would it be also something which would be coming from within, from the domestic side of things, or could it actually be geopolitical with the new administration in the White House?
You know, we are watching all front. I think in terms of the yuan, our expectation is that after the rally last year, we talked about this last September when I was on your show. After the rally last year, my sense is that this year it's more two-way. And the appreciation against the dollar going forward won't be as strong in the last year. One, because the dollar, is showing some rebound. It may not come down as much as what market seems to believe collectively. And two, the gain in China's balance of payment this year is probably not as big as last year because commodity prices are rebounding, so the imports are rising. And also we see that in recent weeks, the PBOC also is sending this subtle message through some tightening measures that the yuan appreciation will not be as fast as early in the year. So we're watching on this front. Our expectation is end of the year, there is 1 to 2% appreciation of CNY against the dollar, but it's more two-way this year. We might see some